be taken back to childhood. A 20x Salvia divinorum trip report uploaded to Arrowhead in December of 2011. Gender, male. Body weight, 145 pounds. Firstly, I'd like to provide a little background about myself. I am currently 24 years old and about 145 pounds. I haven't smoked pot in at least 8 years and have only consumed alcohol no more than 15 times in my life. The very first times I tried Salvia were back in 2006, I believe, with very little effect. I attempted smoking a 10x extract of Salvia a few times, but never had anything more than a laughing fit for a few minutes. I had also tried an undiluted tincture which did nothing but burn the insides of my mouth. I was convinced I was a Salvia hardhead. My interest in trying Salvia divinorum again surfaced one day before the following experience. I was talking with some of my friends and one of them mentioned that they wanted to try it. I mentioned that I had tried it before and was interested in attempting to get a more interesting result. Considering Salvia is entirely legal in my state, I let them know that I knew of a shop in town that sold Salvia and that we could buy from there. They asked a few people about it and ended up recruiting 5 people who wanted to try it. 4 others came along to witness and act as sitters. We purchased 1 gram of Salvia 20x dried leaves the following day and decided to smoke in my apartment that night. We ate dinner around 7 p.m. and then went to my place, settling on the kitchen floor. I ended up going last since I was the only one with any past Salvia experience, and I wanted to be sober to watch over everyone. Each person went at approximate 5-minute intervals so that we didn't have 5 people at peak trips in one small room at the same time. I should mention that, in retrospect, my friends' experiences were nowhere near as intense, revealing, or as long as mine was. I packed the pipe full of approximately 1/10 of a gram of the Salvia leaves. I put my mouth up to the opening and put my thumb over the choke. One of my friends held the torchlighter above the leaves to get them to start burning and then, after about 10 seconds or so, lowered the flame directly onto the leaves. At this point, I began to inhale deeply and got a huge lungful of smoke, which I held for maybe 20 seconds or so. With the smoke still inside my lungs, my vision began to get a little wavy. Instantly, I released the smoke and felt a wave of non-being come over me. I don't know how much time passed, but the next thing I remember, I was feeling as if I was back in my childhood. Now by this, I don't mean that I could see people or places from my childhood, or that I felt as if I was a child again. It was just a sensation that I had been transported back to that time in the universe's history. I saw no images at all. I don't know if my eyes were open or closed, if I was sitting up or lying down, if I had a body, or if I was just my consciousness. All that was real to me was time. My childhood time, and echoing through all of time, all of the universe that I was in was a single word. This word had more meaning than anything else in reality. It was the answer to everything. It was so clear, as if it was being yelled into my brain. The word was tremeldicum, pronounced true-mel.com. I don't know why it was that word, which I had never heard in my entire life. It isn't a word as far as I know, but that word was everything during those moments. The other sensation I had about the word was that it was something that I had forgotten, and that only by being transported back to my childhood could I remember it. Eventually, I turned myself around and saw my friends in the room. I had been lying down on my side facing the white wall. I also noticed that I had drooled quite significantly. I saw everyone fairly clearly, but it was as if they were far away, not in terms of physical distance, but in terms of time. They were not in the same time as me, even if they were in the same place. Throughout this whole experience, I was later told, I was yelling out what I was experiencing, though I don't remember doing that up to this point. After seeing everyone, I was more aware of my physical self and my relation to other things in the room. I eventually stood up and walked around a bit, feeling very strange. I walked into my bedroom, which is just off the kitchen. Upon entering the kitchen, I could see the place I originally had laid, and I was overcome with a sense of nostalgia, as I view that place as the place where my childhood was, and I knew that if I laid back down in that spot that I would be taken back to it. So I did, and I immediately had the same sensation, albeit a little less strong. I laid there for a few moments, facing the wall, and I took that time to try to gather my senses. I started talking to everyone, saying that I knew I had just smoked Salvia, and that what I was doing and saying must look really strange, but to me, it was so very real. I mentioned that I could hear each individual's voice, and I proceeded to blindly point in the direction of their voices around the kitchen. Someone began calling my name repeatedly, and I turned around and noticed that only 1 out of the 8 other people were even in the kitchen with me. I got up and sat against the adjoining wall. If you were facing the original wall, it would be the one joining at the right corner. At that moment, the strangest sense of being in the same place as before swept over me. I quickly moved back to my original place and still felt that I was in the same place as before. What I realized was happening was this. My brain had an idea, a conception of what a room was. It had a front, 2 sides, and a back. Well, it was the back of the room that I constantly felt I was in. No matter what wall I was leaning up against, I felt as if it was the back of the room, the back wall of my apartment. I couldn't be anywhere else despite being able to look around and know where I really was in relation to everything else. After some amount of time, I crawled on the floor under a table. There were 3 chairs pushed in and I was under those as well. I lifted my right leg up and rested it on the chair immediately above my lower half. It felt like it was resting on the top of the table, though. I somehow knew that it couldn't be, but my mind was telling me that my foot was on the table. I asked someone if it was so, but they told me it was just touching the side of the chair. I wanted to crawl back out but felt trapped. Not an overwhelming sense of being trapped, but I couldn't immediately figure out how to get out from under the table. I eventually wormed my way backwards and stood up. I went into my bedroom where everyone else had went and talked to them. I was feeling like I was coming down but still felt strange. The time distance was still between us, and I had a new sensation that I could sense every molecule in the air, that every atom in the universe was a solid, tangible object. It was for this reason, not my own skeleton and muscles, that I was able to stand up straight. I felt that I was being supported by the fabric of the universe and that I could just lean back and I wouldn't fall. Over the next 15 or 20 minutes, I began to get back into a normal state of mind. I used this time to tell my friends all of my experiences while they were still fresh in my head. I remember thinking that the experience I just had wasn't only something that happened in my own mind, but was literally another place, another dimension, another time that actually did exist, that does exist, and that I could return to it somehow. My friends told me that the peak of my experience, where I was, to them, acting the most strangely, lasted a good 20 to 25 minutes. This I find very strange since my friends' experiences were no more than 5 or 6 minutes. I've also read that 5 or 6 minutes is about the average length of a smoked salvia experience. I can't explain why mine lasted so long. The next morning I awoke feeling almost completely normal. I was perhaps just slightly dizzy, my vision wavering just a tad periodically. Though the experience was intense, I see myself perhaps trying it again in a calmer environment. I think the fact that there were so many people there made the experience a little more erratic than it could have been, had there only been a few close friends with me and I was perhaps lying down in a darkened room. Salvia truly transported my mind to a different time and shifted my perception of reality. It was a little scary, but I do not regret experiencing what I did. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. New videos will be uploaded multiple times weekly. Stay safe. Catch you in the next one.